I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me, and when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Hi, I'm Michael Everts, and you're watching Fit to be Read. In today's episode, I'm reviewing science fiction literature at its finest, Dune by Frank Herbert. This episode will be very mindful in approaching the review. Dune is amazing, classic, legendary. Because of that, people find Dune or develop an interest in it in a number of ways, and I want to be considerate of all of those. Many of us love Dune and consume any Dune content we can find. If I begin the review with that in mind, I'm going to confuse half of those who are maybe stopping by to dip their toes in the water to find out what Dune is about, and to decide if they want to go further. In this review, spoiler-free at first, I will speak to both audiences. I'll let you know when we get to the spoilers so you can decide whether or not to stick with the episode. During the episode, I'll suggest using the comments section to contribute or to just fanboy out if you're up for it. The setting for Dune is the planet Arrakis, a desert planet. Much of the planet is deemed inhospitable because of the vast desert with brutal sandstorms and even more brutal sandworms. These worms, also known as makers, are giant. Some are described as 400 meters long with a 40-meter jaw filled with sharp crystal teeth. The planet is coveted because of one thing, the spice. The spice, melange, is a highly addictive and powerful drug that can extend life, enhance mental abilities, and imbue the user with multi-dimensional alertness. Melange is harvested in the sand as it's a byproduct of sandworm secretions. Considering sandworms are very territorial, this is no easy feat. The nomadic inhabitants of the planet, the Fremen, who are well represented in the story, have learned to be very cautious and very skilled traversing the desert. Melange is the main product of the Chom Corporation and is transported by the Spacing Guild. The Spacing Guild is relevant and powerful because of their monopoly on space travel and interstellar banking. Melange aids them in their ability to navigate during faster than light speed travel. They are able to fold space. The interstellar society in this universe is ruled by Emperor Shaddam IV. Planets are ruled or led through stewardships or fiefdoms by powerful houses. The Emperor has granted stewardship of Arrakis to Duke Leto Atreides of House Atreides. Back to Chom. Chom, or the Combine Haunted Oberadvancer Mercantiles, is the largest source of wealth in the Empire, and it's directed by the Emperor and a board. The board's made up of the Landsrat, or the leaders of the great houses. The Spacing Guild are more like silent partners or directors, as are the Bene Gesserit. We're going to discuss and talk about the Bene Gesserit a little bit later. As far as Chom is concerned, they're also kind of like silent advisors. From Chom is where the great houses gain most of their wealth and power. With Chom being the greatest source of wealth, much of the politicking and maneuvering in the novel seeks the directorship as an end goal. For this reason, the Emperor is always in one way or another in someone's crosshairs. The prime scheming, nefarious house, maneuvering in devious ways, is House Harkonnen and the repugnant Baron von Harkonnen. He is an enemy and a rival of Duke Leto, and he seeks to wrest control of Arrakis back from the Atreides. The story of Dune is really the story of Paul Atreides. Paul is the son of Duke Leto Atreides. Through the novel, it's helpful to know that Paul is referred to in a number of ways, including Muad'Dib and Yusul. Paul is a young teenager at 15 years old. He's left his homeworld, the oceanic planet of Caladan, when his father receives the stewardship of Arrakis. In the book, we get a look at some of Paul's impressive fighting training, as well as his unusual training in the ways of the Bene Gesserit. I say unusual as Bene Gesserit training is typically reserved for women. Paul's mother Jessica is a Bene Gesserit. For a number of reasons, this is material to the story, including the fascinating dynamics that present in this very complex mother-son relationship. The Bene Gesserit are very skillful, enlightened, and patient planners. They are strategic and disciplined. They could be described as a sisterhood of mystical women who, through a lifetime of strict and focused mental and physical training, have developed high status and political power and abilities that may seem like magic. A less disciplined interpretation of their talents would be to call it witchcraft. The training they are subjected to is both physically and mentally challenging. Their hunger for power, seemingly, is to be able to secretly direct the fate of humanity. The means by which they attempt to do this fare significantly in the novel. Through the novel, we follow Paul as he learns this new planet, questions himself, faces challenges, and in many ways discovers himself. All of his training will come into play. The novel is not a difficult read. There are new names and terms that are unfamiliar at first, but the writing style is comfortable and rhythmic, quick-paced, and immensely enjoyable. There are no wasted pages here. If you're considering reading Dune, do so for the great imaginative storytelling, the fully realized universe, engrossing characters, an interesting take on the construct of a messianic figure as a potential hero or leader of jihad, and take my word for it that it is fit to be read. Take my word for it also that at this point the remainder of this episode is likely to get spoilery. My intention is to do a number of Dune-related videos before the new movie is released this fall, 2021, but for the remainder of this episode, I'm going to state my 5 likes and my 5 dislikes with the motivation of sparking discussion on some of the points. The first spoiler is that I don't really have 5 things that I really didn't like about Dune, and those things I bring up in the dislikes, I'm hopeful, will be good points for discussion. Like number 1 of 1,000, Herbert doesn't spoon feed us the technology or tell us exactly what things look like unless we need him to. This is great because we can really imagine elements of this world that best suits us. Like number 2, Gurney finding out that Paul is Muad'Dib. That's one of those really cool payoff moments. It feels like in a superhero movie when we, the audience, want the hero to reveal their identity to a close friend, and then that moment finally arrives. Like number 3, the scene of Paul getting on the Maker for the first time, how grand that moment is. The brilliance of the description of how the worm is controlled. This is one of those important moments where Herbert does paint the tapestry of the moment. We learn how Paul is feeling, how it works, what could go wrong. Questions we might ask about the parts that are unbelievable are answered before we ask them. Like number 4, the moment when Gurney Halleck has the knife to Jessica's back. The tension in this moment. In one word, wow. Like number 5, the moments when Paul, Gurney, and Stilgar are all together and how Gurney and Stilgar size each other up. So much has copied Dune since Dune that these characters, while original in many ways, they don't seem as original now because others have created or reinforced a cliche. But in this 10th, for me, reread, Stilgar and Halleck now feel a tad cliche, but it just makes it that much easier to know these two men, who they are and how they tick. I'd be curious for first-time readers, not having read this years ago, will they be put off by the cliche personalities? Like number 5B, the relationship between Paul and his mother Jessica. This is my first reread as a parent of 2 children, and it does make me appreciate the story in new ways, with different eyes. This relationship between Paul and his mother, I'm not aware of any other mother-son relationship like this in literature. Herbert gives us a masterful metamorphosis of the authoritative dynamic between the two of them. Beginning with Jessica, who against Bene Gesserit demands gives birth to a son, and then trains him in the ways of the Bene Gesserit. Paul's role and responsibility, carrying his father's secret to reveal to Jessica about Leto's unwavering trust and support. He never doubted her. Things aren't all love and roses, however. Paul does confront his mother about her choice to have a son, and her role in what he becomes, especially because of the training. Jessica's decision to go forward with drinking the mystical water while pregnant with Aaliyah. Paul's growth acknowledging some level of understanding as to why his mother did do all of this. The general tone, if there is one, of the relationship, through good or bad, is always cold. The one rejoinder to this is a brief moment where, in the novel, they allude to Jessica wanting to hold and comfort Paul, something she failed at previously as a mother. It just so happens to not be the right time for it. The most profound is the empathetic connection, feeling Jessica's inner despair, conflict, hope, and confusion as she witnesses Paul's transformation into what she perceives to be the Kwisatz Haderach. Dislike number 1. After Dune, Whatever you read next is going to be a letdown. Dislike number 2. Given what we know of the Fremen, even though it makes sense, they demurred a little too easy to Paul's speech about not challenging Stilgar. Dislike number 3. The light representation of Feyd-Rautha. He needed a little more page time, or at least another defining moment. It would have enhanced the great fight with Paul even more. Dislike number 4. While Paul's character is dynamic and there are great moments, the story would have benefited from it greater had we got to know him a little bit more before his journey. Dislike number 5. One of the great areas of focus on Paul occurs later during the prophet section of the story. Paul's not sure if he's dreaming and is having confusion with time relativity. He's seeing events and he's not sure if they're happening in the present or are visions of the future. He doesn't seem to be confused about the past though. I'm curious if it would have been more consistent to the time confusion narrative if elements of the past, his father dying, or whatever, were included in the list of events that Paul was trying to categorize as future or present. Was this overlooked? Or more likely is it really just insignificant or not relevant in this section of the book? It's also likely a reach as I'm grasping for straws for a 5th dislike. I'd love to have some discussion on this in the comments if anyone feels it's worthy of elaboration. There is so much more to dissect in this novel, and it's my hope you'll add to the discussion in the comments below. This may be my 11th read of the novel, but there's sure to be even more to pick up in the next reread, because Dune is, and always will be, one of the greatest science fiction novels of all time, and fit to be read. Thank you for watching this episode. I'm Michael Everts. This is Fit to be Read. Please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. And please check out the rest of my videos on my channel. Thank you.